Good morning. First, I would like to thank the fire and the police department for their response in putting out the fire, making sure that me and my family, my partner Michael Thompson, were okay and safe. I'm impressed by their attention to detail, their professionalism. They, along with myself and Michael Thompson, take this matter seriously. I am confident that they have and will give this matter the attention it deserves. Whatever attention is necessary to identify and arrest the persons responsible for this malicious, cowardly act, I'm sure they will do. I also want to thank all those who have called and sent messages of support. We received an outpouring of support and encouragement from so many people. And while the overwhelming number of calls and messages have come from citizens of Vallejo, there are also calls from the Bay Area, Sacramento, Congressman Thompson's office, and friends in Washington, D.C. The questions asked of me repeatedly over the weekend have been the following. Do you think this incident of arson is related to the most recent officer-involved shootings? And who do you think did it? Why do you think someone would do this? Do you think that this is related to your law office activities or your position as mayor? Or are you fearful for your life? In response, the first thing I would like to say is what I think is not the issue. I'm sure that this incident raises many thoughts and speculations in all of our minds, but we're not sure of anything. So let me just answer the question by saying it is best to allow the investigation to be completed before I express my thoughts or come to any conclusions whatsoever. It is true that I have been the subject of other acts of vandalism. However, I'm not prepared to link them, or am I prepared to discount the fact that they could be related. I will just wait for the police and the fire to complete their investigation, and then we'll come to our conclusions. I will say that the number of acts of vandalism which I have been subjected to over the recent past causes me to believe that this incident is related to my position as mayor and not as my position as an attorney. To believe otherwise at this particular time would be to ignore the facts of the escalating acts of attempted intimidation. Although I believe that the last criminal act is part of an escalating attempt to intimidate me, let me make it very, very clear. It has failed. I am not now, nor will I ever be intimidated by such cowardly acts of vandalism or criminal conduct. On the contrary, they only strengthen my resolve to continue to do what is right and good for the city of Vallejo. And though I'm not fearful for my life, I do have a concern for my family, and I will be more conscious of my surroundings from this point on. This is only a temporary diversion for myself and Michael Thompson, and we will do what we need to do in order to restore our practices and move our businesses forward. As mayor of this city, I am steadfast in my commitment to continue doing what I believe is necessary to serve all the citizens of this city, whether they support me or don't. This too shall pass, and we as individuals and as a city will be made stronger and better for it. Thank you.
Mayor, could you reel off the acts of vandalism that led up to the fire, one by one? When did this start?
Well, acts of vandalism, as I said, I'm not ready to link them all together. Acts of vandalism have occurred over the past year.
Such as?
Such as the breaking of windows, dumping of trash, things of that nature.
Were they all focused on your law firm office or other property?
Part on the law firm, part on other properties.
Your home?
Well, yes.
Are you taking extra security precautions? Are there armed guards or that kind of personnel around you now?
No, I do not have armed guards around me right now.
Mayor, you mentioned intimidation. In those past acts of vandalism, were there messages sent with those acts? Or what do you believe the message would be if it could be intimidation?
The message of intimidation is intimidation. I don't understand your question, because if someone does something to try to instill fear, that's intimidation. I think that when someone throws something through your window, it's an act of intimidation.
Can you give us a timeline? Did this start when the city was still in bankruptcy? You had to have layoffs at the city level, then you had the incident with the police shooting. There have been several incidences. So what was the timeline?
No, this did not start with bankruptcy. Bankruptcy started in 2008.
Right, but it ended in 2011.
That's correct. And I don't relate this to bankruptcy activities. At least I don't believe it.
Mayor, what are your thoughts on an initial designation of this being a possible act of domestic terrorism, the ATF, FBI being involved in that? Is that appropriate?
I'm going to allow the police to deal with that question as opposed to me. Lieutenant O'Connell is here. He can answer that question if you wish.
Yeah.
At this point, we've notified the FBI. We've notified the ATF. And at this point, it's just advisory. They have not participated yet in the investigation. They've offered their assistance. And I suspect we'll be asking for that in the very near future.
Lieutenant, terrorism is defined as making a political statement or a cultural statement. Is that what we're looking at here? Is there some kind of statement being made?
Well, I think there could be, and until we know for sure, we have to look at it in those terms.
Have you looked at that surveillance video? Are there any clues that you're gathering from that? Is it, are there clear images?
Kind of an overall view of the investigation. We have some leads that we hope will become promising. That we're looking at it. It's very preliminary right now.
Was it a Molotov cocktail?
I don't want to talk too much about the elements of that crime. I think that would jeopardize what we're trying to do.
How many people were involved?
Like I said, I don't want to share too much about that right now. Not that we don't want to share it, but by sharing it, we jeopardize what we're doing in the future to solve it. So at this point, we can't.
So you were able to find some surveillance video from across the street? Is that, I mean, can you
No,
elaborate?
I've no comment at this point regarding any video that we may or may not have, any leads we might have.
Sir, the mayor said that he wasn't around armed guards at the time, though we did notice an armed officer outside one of his residents. Is that not the case anymore, or is he not have an increased security detail?
We made a decision to provide some security based upon some facts that we learned. That may continue in the future.
Is that continuing right now? Is that ongoing?
Well, I'm next to him.
Mr. Mayor? Well, I know.
No, it will depend upon the circumstances, what we learn.
Lieutenant, throughout this entire ordeal with the intimidation, as the mayor called it, have there been any specific threats against the mayor and specific demands?
I don't know that we should discuss that at this point, but there are facts that we feel warrant an investigation and warrant taking the actions that we've taken.
Mr. Mayor, what would you say to the residents this morning? You seem pretty cool, calm, and collected right now, but we saw you on Saturday, and I know this has shaken you.
Well, I mean, obviously, if you've ever been involved in something so devastating as a fire of a business or a home, I can't express it. You have to experience it to know what it feels like. However, that's the initial reaction to everything, and we're trying to put it all back together. But you have to understand that that was yesterday. This is today. We have to move on. And calmness means that I'm confident that we'll be able to do what we need to move on. And it's just a bump in the road as far as I'm concerned. It's a diversion. We'll get over it. We're moving forward.
You say a bump in the road, but there's a big leap between people yelling at a city hall meeting or even throwing rocks through a window and a fire.
And I think that that's why I've expressed that even though I don't fear for my life, I am conscious of my surroundings. I will be more conscious and aware of them in the future. I'm not taking this lightly. It is a serious act, and we will address it accordingly.
Are you having security for your family?
Am I having security?
You were saying that you don't necessarily have security around you all the time, but you also mentioned your family and being concerned for them. Are you hiring security to monitor your family?
I am not hiring security to monitor my family, no.
Is the city providing security for your family?
I think the chief, I think the lieutenant answered you already. He said that whatever security he believes that I and my family needs, they will provide.
Can you give us a little bit of background on your law practice, how long you've been in that building and so on, and what kind of law you practice there?
I do basically civil litigation, probate, and landlord-tenant matters. And my partner does personal injury matters. Been in that building probably for about 20 years.
There are evictions involved in your line of work, in
Yes.
this type of legal work, so do you think that that potentially could have played into this?
What I think doesn't matter, okay, first of all.
Any indication?
Let me just say this. I've handled landlord-tenant matters for the last 32 years, and I've never had a problem with a tenant or a landlord that escalated to an act of arson or any other kind of physical violence.
Are you still
three more
able
questions.
to, are you still able to continue with your practice? I mean, is there stuff in there that's salvageable that allows you to go forward?
Yeah, we'll be able to salvage our files, at least most of our files, and move forward.
Do you have a message for the person who did this?
I think I gave that message. Your attempt to intimidate or to instill fear has failed. It only has strengthened my resolve to continue to do what I need to do.
Mayor, how are you feeling? Describe how you are feeling about all of this. I mean, you've certainly been through so much.
Describe how I'm feeling.
Yeah, how are you feeling?
Well, it's an inconvenience, one thing, to have to go through and do the things that we have to put our practice together. And it's a diversion. It keeps you from being able to do all the things that you should be doing on behalf of the city or on behalf of your business. So to that extent, that part of it is frustrating. But as I said, this is just, I have a saying that most people don't understand half the time, and that is, it is what it is, and it's going to be what it's going to be. And that's how I deal with it.
Just to settle back one more time, you had earlier said you weren't going to you weren't going to take a leap and talk about what you think happened, but at the same time, you also said it's political. You believe it is political.
I do believe that, yes.
Do you think it's in relation to
your
the council
call?
take up in this issue as a whole, as a more than just a threat to you, but to the other council members?
I'm going to leave that to the council to answer. I don't think so. I don't think anyone else has been subjected to even the minor acts of vandalism that I have, so I don't think so.
Do you think we need more security in council chambers?
I think that's a good question. I think that if there are those who are desirous of hurting myself or any council members, we probably should start looking at that and taking it a little more serious, because we are open here on each Tuesday night. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Those of you who want to copy this statement, it's
Mark.